Hey there, it's Casey Stubbs, and welcome to the How to Trade It podcast. Today we have a special bonus episode. Bonus. Everybody loves a bonus. And today we're going to be talking about the importance of paying yourself first. Because why is that important? Because you want to be trading from a position of financial security. Because when you do not trade from a position of financial security, it causes you to make mistakes. It causes you to self-sabotage. It causes you to do all kinds of things that are not conducive to success. It's much better for your mindset, right? So we're going to get into all of those things in today's episode. So sit back, relax, and get ready because there's going to be some very key actionable steps for you to take part in. And one of the biggest things about a great podcast is that you have action items. I just recently attended 2 conferences. One was a financial publishers conference, which was teaching about how to do financial publishing, create content that traders can truly grasp on. And the other conference I attended was a podcasting conference, like how to engage the audience and how to teach them from your content. And both of those conferences that I attended, I had key action items, things that I was going to take away with, that I was going to walk away from and implement to become better at what I do. And so I want to encourage you to listen in today and to take action on what you're going to learn. So the first thing that I want to talk about is some of the key benefits for paying yourself first. So I'm going to preface this by I take off a 10% to pay myself first. And what I do is I do 2 sections of this. I do 10% that I'm going to designate for giving, and then I do 10% that I'm going to designate for 10% I'm going to designate for saving, right? And so from that's actually 20% that I take off the top. And so I learn to live off of 80% of my revenue. Now, you might be getting a little freaked out here saying, Casey, you don't understand my situation. You don't know what my checkbook looks like. You don't know what my bank account looks like, and you don't know the expenses that I have. And you're right, I don't know. But I know my expenses and I know my circumstances, and I know that I'm a family man with 9 kids and I have a lot of things going on. And I know that I have been making pretty good money the last few years, but when I first started out, I did not make a lot of money. And I've always done this 20% method, even when I didn't have a lot of money. In fact, some of you that have been listening to this show before probably know that I was in the military when I was 19 years old, and I saved most of my money and I invested it in the stock market. And at that point, I didn't have any expenses, so I actually invested about 80% at that point. So that was kind of a reversal for me. I did 80%. So I started out doing this really heavy on the front end, and it gave me such a strong financial security that it launched me into business, right? And so I started out really solid. And that was easy for me to do because I was a single person. I didn't have expenses. I was in the military. And so that was really a perfect situation. And so for some of you, you can't do that. And I understand that. But you can start doing something, right? And that's what we're going to talk about in the action items. Because it was such a great thing for me because I ended up with like $30,000 in stock account when I got out. And so as a young person with that much cash, then I launched a business from there. It just really helped set me up on the right foot. And so one of the ways that I was able to do that is I had a long-term vision. So I would say step 1 for doing this is you need to have a long-term vision. Kind of look at what you're going to learn what you want to accomplish. What are some of the key vision items in your life? And I was at PodFest, and I was talking just to a random guy at a table and a random coach, and he was teaching me. So I'm learning everywhere I go. He's like, when you write your vision, you want to go back and look at what you want your life to look like in the future. Write down, don't look about where you're at right now, but look at what you want your life to look like. And then he said, write down what you want your specific day to look like. And so I really took that to heart when he was talking to me, and I wrote it down. Because I'm a big guy on vision, and it's helped me out a lot, but I'm always needing tweaking on how to do my planning and vision. So I'm just going to encourage you right now. Take some time. Action item number 1 that you want to write down or just think about. Don't just consume this content and not take action, because then you become puffed up full of knowledge and you're not getting any experience. There's nothing worse, and don't be offended here, but there's nothing worse than a person that has tons of knowledge and they don't do anything with it, right? So be an action taker. Do something with the knowledge. So step number 1, why are you going to save if you don't have a plan? There's no purpose for saving. Right? So maybe you want to become a trader. Maybe you want to launch a business. Maybe you want to spend time with family or whatever it is. Just write it down. And then from there, you can write and come up with a strategy on how to accomplish that vision. Now, this message isn't about vision, but you still need a vision in order to have the discipline to begin with your savings. And so back when I got out of the military and then I started with my family, that's when it really got challenging for me, because I was not making a ton of money at that point. I was just getting into the markets again, and I was just starting a business, and so I was starting a family, so I had all of these expenses, and so the concept of paying myself first was very difficult. However, I did that. And again, for me, it was important that I was also giving 10%, because as a Christian, the Bible says to give the Lord your first fruits, to give 10%. So I do that right off the top. And, God says that if you do that and you are faithful with it, He's going to bless you. And so I believe that. So I give 10%. So for me, it's a matter of trusting God and faith, right? So I do that. So then I take the second 10% off the top, and that goes to me. And I take that and I put it into a type of investment and something that will give you a return on your money. One of the key components that really helped me out was reading some really good books. And so I'm going to give you two cool references, and we'll link to these books in the description. But one is called The Richest Man in Babylon. The Richest Man in Babylon is a very old book, and it was written by George S. Clason. And so if you get a chance to get that, it's an easy read, but it was talking about how the people way back in the Babylonian days were able to accumulate great wealth. And one of the things he talked about was you letting your money work for you and you not working for your money. Because we've seen in recent years from some very wealthy people like Warren Buffett, who have shown us that putting your money aside and investing is a great way to make a living, right? Because you are letting your money work for you. The way that George talked about it in The Richest Man of Babylon is he described your money as being soldiers, right? And you send those soldiers out, and those soldiers come out, and then they bring back more soldiers. It's like you're recruiting. So you put that investment out into the market, whatever it is you want to invest in, real estate, crypto, stocks, you just put it out there, and then it returns money. You can invest in another business, just something that will return on your investment, something that gives you cash flow. And then what you do is you then take that cash flow, right? You take that cash flow and you reinvest it, right? So let's just think about how this will work, okay? Let's think about how this will work. Let's say you get 10% of your paycheck, and that's $100. And you throw that out there to the world, And then that $100 brings back another $100. Now that's 100% ROI. That's really good. So we don't know that we're going to get something that has 100% ROI. Sometimes you can even lose money, right? So that's something we have to calculate and think about. But when we are successful with our investment, and we receive that $100 back, now we have 100 and we earned money without working for it. Our money did the work, right? That's why we want to be very careful to buy things that will generate revenue instead of buying things that take revenue away. And this podcast is about trading, so it's really focused on helping you. This topic is to help you as a trader, because when you have a little bit of a backup or you have other passive revenue, you can use your trading profits and then take those out of your account and then throw them in to some of your other vehicles. And so you're able to generate money from trading, which is really you're working for your money. It's not necessarily passive because you have to study the markets and take the trades. You're actually working. But then you take the profits from that and then you roll them back into something that's going to create passive revenue. And so if you're right now, a potential strategy for you could be, is you could, let's say you're working a job, you work that job and you create revenue. Well, you also are trading, maybe you're trading on the side, you're doing swing trades or something like that, and you're earning additional revenue. Well, you can take the revenue from your job, the revenue from your trading, and you can roll them in to your investments. And then when those investments pull back money, you then roll them into something else. And so the idea here is that it's called compounding wealth, right? Compounding your wealth is super important because that's where financial freedom comes from. And it's also where great wealth comes from. So this can help you accomplish your visions and your dreams to get you where you want to be in your life. And it doesn't matter how far you are, or how difficult of a situation you are in, or how old you are, or where you're at, you can do this today. Because it's important to understand that it's not necessarily how much you make, but it's how you use what you have. Another great example of that from my own personal life is that when I first got started in business, it was a very difficult financial time for me because I was just starting my family. I was married and I had several children, and I didn't have a job at the time. And so I didn't have a lot. But what I did was I took the resources that I had available to me and I implemented them into action. And so this is specifically geared towards taking action and investing money, but it doesn't necessarily have to be money, right? We want you to be investing. I'm encouraging you to invest 10% of your money. And if you want to give 10% on top of that, then try to make that happen. Come up with a plan to make that happen. But there's other things that you have too, that I would recommend you take resources, you take inventory. Like I had some skills, right? I had skills, website skills. I took those website skills and I implemented them. I had trading skills. I took those trading skills and I implemented them. And those were not financial things. Those skills were not, that's not a money. It's not, there's a saying that says it takes money to make money. That's actually not true. It takes effort and it takes resources. But some of those resources could be skills. And maybe you don't have the skills right now. Maybe you don't know how to trade, or maybe you don't know how to create websites. But find some skills, develop some skills. What are you interested in? Develop skills, use those skills then to create revenue, right? It doesn't take money to make money. It takes skill. It takes talent. It takes resources. So you can apply those to help generate more revenue, which then you can use to help you put that money to work, right? And another great book that I read, so since we're talking about books, a great book that I read that helped me out a lot was Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And one of the stories in there that I just absolutely loved was that he was working for free as a young man. And he said that was the most valuable lesson he ever learned, was because he learned how to make money because he had to, right? He was working as a at a store, and it was kind of an internship. But he was getting the skills, right? The value in that was that he was getting the skills, and he was starting to learn at a very young age that you don't necessarily want to be the kind of person that's living for a paycheck. You want to try to figure out how to get revenue from other ways. Use your mind. And he came up with a great strategy. He got the comic books that they were throwing out, and then he rented them out to his friends at school. And he was then making more money from that business than he would have had he ever earned a paycheck. And so he took resources, he took an idea, and he implemented it, and it created a side revenue for him, which was a great side revenue. So just take some time. Another action item would be take some time and think about your skills. Think about what you can do. You know, in today's world, your mind is the biggest asset ever. And you might think, well, hey, Casey, I'm not a smart guy like you. Well, listen, I'm not a smart guy either. But here's the thing, is I invest time in educating myself. I invest time in becoming better at my skill sets. And so that is really important. And also, here's another big one that this is something that my mentor, Perry Marshall, really talked to me a lot about, and I've heard a lot of other people say it as well, and I've implemented it. It's we got to take time to think, to process. Today's world, everything's TikTok and Instagram Reels and, super fast. It used to be the microwave generation. You want it hot, you want it fast, and you want it now. People aren't taking time to think. And we have AI that's thinking for people. ChatGPT is a big thing, and I use it a lot, and it's great. All of these new things. But here's the thing. It gives us a huge opportunity because those of us, when I say we, I'm talking about myself and you that are listening, those of us that take the time to implement our thought life, to sit back, get off of social media, sit back with a notepad and a paper and examine things and let that supercomputer that is called a brain that you have work, you're going to really see the ability to stand apart from the rest of the world, because the rest of the world isn't doing that right now. The rest of the world is connected to social media, and they're trying to lean into the tools. They're going to let AI think for them, but they're not going to slow it down, and they're not going to come up with great ideas. So part of this whole investing thing that I'm talking about is investing your top 10%, but also taking the time to think about ways to increase your revenue. Think about ways to accomplish your vision. Think about ways to really make a change in your life. And one of my other friends who's a mentor came up and gave me some great questions, and to write those down every day and think about them. And so I'm going to give you these questions now. And one of them is just basically, what do you want to do? What do you want to accomplish? Write that down. And then just write it down every day. Ingrain that deep in your spirit so you know what you want. And then the next question is, what steps do I need to do to get there? Right? So you just write that down and think about it every day. And every day your mind is going to get sharper and sharper and is going to have a clearer picture on how to make that happen. Right? You're going to use your mind. Your mind is going to be the tool that's going to set you free. It's going to be the tool that's going to set you apart from everyone else. And then another great question that we add to this is, what are the obstacles in my way, and how do I overcome those? Right? So we've got all of these thoughts, because everything that you're going to do is going to come up with obstacles. There's going to be things that are going to help, or that not help, but help slow you down, that are going to work against you. There's always resistance. And so we have to mentally solve those problems. And one of the ways we do that is through our mind and thinking. You can also reach out to people, ask for help. I'm available on LinkedIn and Twitter or email. Don't hesitate to reach out to me and say, hey, I've got this problem. I've been thinking about it. What do you think? And I will gladly get on a call with you, or send you a quick email. I have no problem with that. right? Because I'm here to share what I have learned, because I'm always learning from other people. I just connected with Joe from Podfest, and I learned from him. And now I'm sharing that with you, and I'm going to be connecting with more people later, and I'm going to be learning from them, and I'm going to be sharing with you. And so I don't mind trying to help you out with some of these problems. And so, again, just kind of reiterating, the whole point of this is to talk about the purpose of paying yourself first, so you have a financial position of security, so you can trade well, and so that you can ultimately create wealth. And ultimately create wealth. Why are you going to create wealth? So you can accomplish the goals and the things that you want to do with your life. And so a quick step is just come up with your vision. Ask yourself those daily questions. Set aside a time to think every day. Disconnect from social media. A busy mind is not your friend. A lot of that social media is very addictive. Another thing that I would look at is, if you cannot do this, if you literally are not making enough money, sometimes cash flow is the problem. I'm not insensitive to not having enough money. I'm not going to say, well, you're wasting your money. I'm not going to say that to you, because maybe you're really not making enough. Because look, inflation is really bad right now. Everything's so expensive, and it's hard to make it in today's world. I get that, but that's still not an excuse. We still have to start somewhere. If you can only save 1%, start. Start today. Come up with an action plan to do 1% additional savings every month until you get to 10%. Go over your budget. Look, and what can you cut? Is there anything unnecessary? You know what? There's no shame in cutting out TV or something. Cut your Netflix. Like, seriously. Do you really have to have Netflix? Think about some of these things that you could cut back in your budget. And I don't believe necessarily that cutting is the right answer all the time, but we should really manage well what we have. Because if you can manage well what you have, you'll get more. But if you can't manage it, you're going to waste it away. So be a good steward with the money that you're making right now, because it's really a myth to think that money is going to solve your problems. Because here's what's the reality is. If you can't save 10%, and if you're not using your money well now, you're not going to do better with more money. Having more money is not going to solve your problem. And ask me how I know that. Well, because I used to think that too until I made more money, and then I got myself in a bigger mess. Because when I first started to make a lot of money, everything was great, but I started spending like a crazy person, and I wasn't planning, and I wasn't prepping, and I made a lot of mistakes, and I got myself into a big, big hole. And that's why we see those celebrities and, athletes that make all of this money, and we're like, how can they mess it up so much? Well, because if you're not good at managing a little, you're going to be really bad at managing a lot. So you got to be a good manager of your finances. So take a look at it and start putting some money aside now. Learn to live beneath your means. And so if you can't do 1%, then I don't know if I could help you, right? But I would say do 1%, start there, and then slowly grow it. Slowly increase and live less and less below your means. And you know what? You don't necessarily have to stop at 10% either. You could make a plan to continually live below your means. Increase. You could even say this: I'm going to increase my revenue by 100%, and I'm only going to spend the same, right? And so if you're living at 90% below your means right now, and you increase your revenue by double, but you keep your spending the same, now you're saving over 50% of your revenue, right? And I'm not using this, I use the word saving, but that's not really what I mean. I mean taking that money to create a passive revenue stream. And so this is a trading podcast, so we do want to make sure that it applies to trading, but it's so important because a trader really needs to be a good manager of funds. You need to be a good manager of your personal money. You need to be a good manager of your own life. Because if you can't manage it, you're not going to be successful. And that's not always a popular opinion. It's not a popular thing that people hear, but I'm just telling you that because I want to help you. I want to help you get ahead. So that's a quick action item that you can really run with. And, let me know if you want to do it. Let me know if you need some help. There's going to be some obstacles. It's not going to be easy. Here's another big one that I want to mention that I've fallen a victim to, is you start saving, you start investing, and then something comes up and you have to take all that money out. And or maybe you want to buy something. So I've run into that a couple times. Number one is some young people will do really well saving. They don't have a lot of expenses, so then they go out and buy themselves like a really fancy truck or something. In my area, the trucks are really popular, so they'll spend like $70,000 on a truck, right? And I always tell people when I have that conversation with them, I'm like, well, I want you to realize that was just $1 million truck. And they're like, what do you mean? I only paid this for it. I said, well, you just took that money out of your earning power, right? You just took that money out of your financial power. The tool that's making you passive revenue, you just pulled the plug on, right? So you want to really understand that when you have passive revenue, whether it's dividends, real estate, stock trading, whatever it is, if you pull out the money, you lose your earning power. And so what is that going to cost you? I'm not saying don't do it. I'm not saying don't enjoy your money. I'm not saying any of those things. But I'm saying at least think about it. Make up your mind and think about it. It's like, okay, yeah, that's going to cost me $1 million in passive revenue. Am I willing to pay that right now? Maybe you are, maybe you're not. You're giving up future money. And the same thing happens with emergencies. It's good to have a little bit of an emergency fund. That's something I learned a long time ago when I took a financial course by Dave Ramsey. He said, set up an emergency fund. Set up money that in case something happens, because guess what? Something's going to happen. And that way you don't have to pull out of putting away 10%, right? You don't have to pull out of that, right? And then the last obstacle, which is really big, and people listen to this all over the world, but I know it's really big in the United States, which is financial debt, right? It's okay to have credit cards, in my opinion. Some people will say don't do that, but I believe you can do it if you're managing it responsibly and you're not overextending. Because if you're overextending, it's just ridiculous, because you are paying so much on interest, and then instead of saving, the reverse is happening. So it's the opportunity cost. You're paying whatever your interest is on the credit cards, you're paying $500 a month in interest. And not only is that taking money away from you, but it's also taking away your investing power. So that's a double whammy. It's literally sucking the life out of you. So don't pay credit card interest. Don't do it, right? It's okay to take an investment and pay interest as long as your profits are covering that. Like if you buy a house and your profits on your real estate rental income is greater than your interest payments, that's okay. But don't be paying out interest for buying stuff. Like that's a financial plan for disaster. And unfortunately, that's what most people in the United States are doing. Right, so let's not be like most people. Let's come up with a plan, and that's going to help us be great traders. So again, thank you so much for listening. I hope that this was helpful today. I really want you to connect with me, so go and connect with me on LinkedIn. I have my link in the description for LinkedIn. Connect with me on Twitter. My handle is Casey Stubbs. Go connect with me. Send me an email at info@tradingstrategyguides.com. Let me know what you think of today's episode, and just take action. Take action on some of the things that you've heard today. And when you do that, you will be improving your financial situation. It's going to help you be a better trader. It's going to help you create passive revenue. It's going to help you accomplish your goals. Like this episode really has a lot of things for you to grab a hold of. So go ahead and do it. Take action and reach out to me. Let me know what you think about today's episode. I'd really appreciate it. And thanks a lot. And thanks for listening to the How to Trade It podcast. We'll hear you.